So, as I said in the general introduction, algebra has the ability to let paper, or in this case my whiteboard, keep track of a lot of numbers for me, right? I don't have to do a lot of the arithmetic in my head. I can let the medium take care of that, keeping track of, so I can do the calculations carefully, keep track of my units, so forth and so on. Now, some of the most basic forms here, some of the most basic equations you can work with are going to look, well, they may not really, for most people, it may not end up being something you really needed an equation for. However, it'll serve as an introduction and the point at which you usually like to reduce your other equations to. So, there. Let's talk about, say, for instance, you need to space a screw from the surface the head's coming out. Yes, you need, and you want to raise it a specific amount. I don't know. Say, for instance, you want to raise it 4 millimeters. You want to know how many washers you need to get to that height, right? Let's say every washer has a thickness of 3/4 of a millimeter. And your question is, well, how many do I need? Well, that question can be answered by n for number, or whatever letter you'd like, times, and here I like to actually use a dot for multiplication. Why? Because often enough we use x as our unknown, and then the x for multiplication is confusing. So I'm going to try to continue that for all of these algebra parts and for most of the stuff beyond. So n, some unknown number, times this 4/3 should give us the number 4. And so we're going to try to figure out what that n is. Now, here is where we come to some of the most important things in algebra, and where the discipline gets its name to start with. It comes from the moving of parts from one side to the other of an equal sign. And we can do this by adding or subtracting the same things to both sides, or multiplying and dividing both sides. It's always, those two things can always be done, with the exception of dividing by 0, which doesn't make any sense. It's a non-thing. Okay. The next important thing to take note of is your goal is almost always to get that unknown by itself. All right, so algebra allows us to move things around on either side of an equation, and our goal in doing that moving around is to get that unknown by itself. It's called solving for that number. Okay, so we're solving for n right now. Now, n has been multiplied by this number 3/4. I want to get that out of there, so the best thing I could do is divide by 3/4 both sides of the equation so as to solve for n. Now, I could do that by conceiving of this as a full-on division by a fraction. Like so. Like that. Or, similarly, I could have at the beginning simply multiplied both sides by the reciprocal of 3/4. I'm going to erase this and do it that way now. Since multiplying by the reciprocal is dividing by the fraction, we can do this fairly simply. So 4/3 times n times 3/4 equals 4/1 times 4/3. And as you see, that saves us a step, if you will. And there we have the same answer. Now, of course, the physical interpretation of that answer is perhaps a little frustrating. That would mean we need 5 and a part of another washers. So either we're going to have to find another size washer, or perhaps put some other spacers in the paper, for instance, depending on what we're working with.